Before I get to my thoughts on these snap packs and a very specific real world scenario, which I hope will be valuable, I will start talking about some of these unreleased cards and seeing which ones I think will get tweaked before release. There is Infinity Ultron to kick us off. He is an interesting card, adds 2 out of 6 additional cards into your hand after he's played. My full and complete thoughts along with theory crafted decks should be available in a upcoming video if it's not out already by the time you're watching this. Now, I'm also not sure what to think of Strange Supreme. Ultimately, I think it will be a good card. The only issue is the more power it gains, Shang-Chi becomes a risk, Shadow King is always a risk, and that may be the limiting factor. Now, good players to avoid Shang-Chi will keep Strange Supreme at 8, and then it's just going to be how you build around him. So if you don't draw him, are you able to win? If you do draw him, are you going to be able to win? So this is another card I'm leaning toward getting just because it is an interesting mechanic, and from a deck building perspective, there are some potential avenues, odd avenues, that I could take this card. Now, Hydra Stomper is interesting, but does he actually fit in move decks? Of course, he kind of needs to. It's a move card. That's how you get power on him. Maybe it's as simple as pairing him with a Heimdall. You go more classic Heimdall move instead of like the small movers with Dagger, Human Torch, and Vulture. At 3 cost, that's kind of competitive. On turn 3, you want to be doing things. Now, you don't have to get him onto the board to realize his gains. You can play him on the last turn or turn 5 because it's +1 power that your card's moved for the entire game. So this one's going to be curious to see how it plays out, and right now I'm leaning toward not picking him up. Esme Cuckoo? Esme Cuckoo? What? She is the Season Pass card upcoming, and I am leaning toward getting this one. She is pretty interesting. Again, it comes into play with your deck building, and do you run potentially a Luke Cage or a Mobius? My first thought goes toward Pixie as well, and just seeing how that all works together, I have no clue. It reminds me a little bit of Frigga, because you're getting a copy of a card at the 3 cost spot, and this will just be interesting, and I'm looking forward to theory crafting with this deck because we are overdue for a good Season Pass card. The last 2 in Agamotto and Captain Carter have not been good.
Trash.
Go ahead and fight me for saying that. Now, Surge seems borderline busted. Depending on how you build around her, being able to discount 1 cost and +1 power, if all you have are potentially low cost cards, there is no limiter right now on this card that says minimum 1 cost. So your 1 cost cards could be 0, and then you can just pair that with another card on that same turn and continue discounting your cards. So I could see this easily fitting into something like a Havoc deck, one of those 3 cost and below only decks, because you can always play those cards, always get them at a discount, and it just keeps going. So this card seems pretty powerful. I would not be surprised to see this tweaked. Potentially you lower Surge's base power, or I don't know, it's already at -1 and +1, so you can't lower that any unless you're just removing it. So this will be interesting. Maybe her whole ability gets swapped out, because I see this effect as very powerful. So Prodigy reminds me, of course, a lot of Captain Carter, but this is potentially even more restrictive because Prodigy is copying the text of the card in front of it. So it either needs to be on the left side. Am I reversed? I probably am. So let's go left side. Let's hope I'm right. Or right side. And so that restriction may just be the death nail in this card. Or potentially people can get creative. One thought that comes to mind is having Wasp in the deck. That way I can properly position cards in a specific lane. But also, similar to Captain Carter, you're going tall in one lane potentially and then neglecting the two other lanes. Or you're open to some kind of tech. This is an on-reveal card, not a ongoing card as well. So there aren't the huge amount of tech cards like there are for ongoing. You really have Cosmo. So yeah, this is just going to be really interesting, and I'm just going to have to theory craft decks with it. So Elixir. What in the world decks does he go into? I do not know. Potentially, well, I was going to say Phoenix Force, but you're actually reviving the card. Phoenix Force revives the card, so that's a no-go under typical circumstances. This is a card also that could see, what's her name? Firehair come back because you've destroyed a card and now you can bring it back and potentially destroy it again and continue getting those procs on Firehair. But I don't have a clear picture right now on where this slots into and why you would bring a card back. Potentially also if you're as Shang-Chi protection, if you don't have priority going into that last turn, and your opponent, you're expecting a Shang-Chi, you play Elixir, and it brings back the card that was Shang-Chi'd. So those are the thoughts I have right now, but again, I'm just gonna have to theory craft. Zorn is up next, and this just moves any 3 or 4 cost cards to another location. I do not know what to say about this card. I do not see how this is good. I don't see it. Yeah, you compare him with Vulture, something like that. But having cards go to random locations is less than ideal. You don't see much Hercules being played, if at all, because he also sends them to random locations. So this could potentially be disruptive. You could play it in a Scream type deck, maybe that's the way, but otherwise maybe that's the path now that I talked myself into it. But otherwise I don't see how this card is going to be great. It might have a niche use, but yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Morgan Le Fay is very interesting to me. Being able to bring back your discarded and destroyed cards into your hand. Maybe this is hella discard protection. You could bring her back and more powerful if you YOLO a Lady Sif and she hits your hella. But otherwise, being able to bring back your destroy cards, I do not know the uses where this would actually be powerful. Because thinking through it, she is a 4-cost card, which is expensive. And so before that, you need to have destroyed a card, but you need to destroy a card you actually like, that is good. So you need to play that card on a turn. Let's say turn 2, are you really going to destroy a 1-cost card and bring her back? Maybe you bring back a couple, your 1-cost card and your 2-cost card. Destroy those with Carnage or Venom. Bring them back into your hand with Morgan Le Fay on turn 4. And then turn 5, I guess you could play them out again and then finish off with a null or something like that. So maybe it goes in some weird destroy deck. And so I am leaning toward liking this card and getting this card. It's interesting, but I'm just gonna have to see really how powerful, how good, how easy this kind of works into turns, because at a 4/5, it doesn't seem like it can just slide in. You really have to be purposeful, and you only have 6 turns, and it's a lot of moving parts to see her payoff. Merlin, let's get into some spells. Not spells, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Skills. So Merlin is better than Agamotto. Can I say that already? Because he's adding skills into your hand, not into your deck, so you can still draw through your deck normally. Now, you don't want to brick your hand, which is the potential issue that Merlin would run into. And so these skills are all going to be randomly generated, so that probably means you can just get the same skill over and over again. That's going to be fun. And this is probably the weakest skill. It brings up Merlin to not a 2-5, a 3-5, because these skills all cost 1 right now. You're really hoping to get another spell, but if you get this one, let's say you played the first one and now this one, now it's a 4-7 Merlin, which still isn't great, and you need space in your curve to play 1-cost cards, so potentially you're either holding these spells, or, which is possible, and just slam them down on the last turn and really buff up that Merlin, or you're bricking your hand potentially, or playing down other cards instead of this, or playing below curve. You're playing a 3-cost card and a 1 on turn 4 because he's continually giving you these spells. And this is the spell I think is the strongest. It is a mini Cersei. There's a huge random component here. So ultimately this card may prove to be too random, and we'll see if it stays in its current state. The Ancient One is up next, and she adds a Tau Mandala to your hand, which is a 3-cost card or skill, and it copies the text of one of your ongoing cards to all of the characters, I guess, in that lane. At 3 cost, it is definitely powerful. We've all seen what images of Icon, I think is what it's called, from Agamotto, which is a 4 cost, which turns all of your other cards in that lane to the highest power one, and that's super powerful. But it's also random. This gets added to your hand when you play the Ancient One. So this could be fantastic, but also the setup, everybody's mind of course goes to Iron Man, but does this fit in a world with a toxic deck? And you have Mystique on the last turn and the Tau Mandala with Ajax, but then you would need turn 7 to get down a Hazmat as well. So I am not sure, and we'll just have to wait and see. Am I saying that too much?
Yes, you dummy.
Nightmare, I think, has a effect that may end up proving to be too random. The example I always bring up is Cersei. Now, you do get to keep the cost and power of the cards in your hand, but that ability, boy, you really want to stay away from 2 and 3 cost cards, because those just have some awful abilities that can be random that just don't fit into what you want to do. So I have no clue. I'm leaning toward this being too random to be any good. So after Clea gains power, she adds a Flames of Faltine into your hand. So this could be interesting. It's a 1-cost spell with -2, so essentially it's a 1/2. My mind says that this ends up being a pretty powerful 1-cost card, because all of the effects, she's gaining power through some means, but then you also have to think about how are you building your deck. With the -2, of course, my thought goes to Negative Affliction, but Negative Affliction doesn't build up power in your own cards. It just afflicts the board negatively. So yeah, I'm not sure where this card would end up fitting. Probably in a hand buff deck, and you're just, whenever you get the -2, just fantastic. And it does work when the card is in your hand, which is nice. So she doesn't need to actually be on the board to see that effect happen. And maybe this ends up getting paired with a Gwynpool, something like that, or a Kahori, and we'll see. Okay, so as you may have heard, Snap Packs are coming to Marvel Snap, replacing the Spotlight Cash Key system, so we will be going to exclusively tokens. You will always be able to pick up your targeted singular card for 6,000 tokens, but now there are also snap packs. Now, I see a lot of general excitement around the idea. I am generally excited about the idea, but I am cautiously excited because it's like gambling. The house always wins. Second dinner needs to make money. So this isn't going to be some super generous system that I fear that people are expecting. And just in the same way that keys were actually more generous than the previous system we had, it wasn't perceived that way because people want to unlock the cards that they want, and they skipped other cards for a reason because they didn't want them. So snap packs doesn't solve that. So the example I have here is, let's say next month I want the very first card that's coming out, Surge. I spoke to how I think she's going to be super powerful and good in her current form. So I want Surge. Snap packs include the Series 5 cards from the current month and the previous month. So we are at the beginning of the month and Surge has just come out. The cards I picked up from last month, or this month, is Infinity Ultron, Strange Supreme, and then Esme Cuckoo is the Season Pass card. She doesn't count in this. The Season Pass card is excluded from Series 5. It's just the Season Pass card. So I really only got Infinity Ultron and Strange Supreme. The cards I skipped. Peggy Carter I did not get from the Season Pass, and once the new season ticks over, she's no longer a Season Pass card, she's Series 5. So Peggy Carter is now in the Series 5 pool. She's in this snap pack, along with Goliath, who I skipped, Kahori, who I skipped, and Hydra Stomper, who I skipped. So that is 4 cards that I did not want on purpose. And then we have Surge, 5 cards. So I will have 5 cards in this snap pack. Now, the first time I open, let's say I get Peggy Carter, who I don't want because I think she is
trash.
So I get her, I'm disappointed. And then I get Kahori, I'm disappointed again. I really only want Surge. So now I've needed to open 5 packs to get Surge. Now, the next week, if I get, what's his face? I'll show him on the screen. If I get him, then I am guaranteed him. I've opened all of them. If I got Surge after Peggy Carter and Goliath, and then I get Surge, now I have Kahori, Hydra Stomper, and this guy, whatever his name is, in the pack. So there will be moments of disappointment. I highly suggest we're gonna get a surplus of tokens. Please do not let it burn a hole in your pocket. Please. Because you're going to want to save your tokens. That way you can buy multiple packs in order to get the card you really want. And so there is going to be that point of frustration. We do not know what the packs will be priced at. Of course, you can always target the card at 6,000 tokens. And honestly, that might be the best thing to do because I am in a different scenario than other players. Of course, we're all in different spots and situations. We all started the game at different times. So if you didn't get any of the cards, in a certain given month, or, there could be 8 cards in your pack. And yeah, there could be 8 cards where you need to constantly try to get the card that you actually want. And now you have run out of tokens because you let it burn a hole in your pocket once the system switched over. So please be careful, use caution, because this system won't be super generous. It's never as generous as the player base wants, but it should be a better system than what we operate in. But again, that's why I covered that example, because I want you to realize that yes, you can get to a point where the card is guaranteed, like the card I'm just forgetting the name and not even bothering to look up. but that card prior, you may have to burn through a lot of tokens if you're going that route. And then is it more cost effective to just get that card for 6,000 tokens instead? We'll have to see. Thanks to the members of the channel, and thank you to everybody that watches this deep into the video. This is a different type of video than I've done before. The reason is I have to record these in advance because of real life obligations. So I don't like recording deck videos in advance of or for the day after an OTA, which is the day this video gets released. So ideally, the OTA didn't affect anything I spoke about here, but it very well could have. OTAs sometimes impact future cards. And so just let me know if you're interested in these types of videos. I could throw them in every once in a while covering future cards. And otherwise, until next time.